So we continue with eNCA's focus on the judiciary. There's been widespread criticism about how slowly cases are resolved. Let's take a look at the El Dorado Park teenager Nathaniel Julies. And it's been 2 years since he was killed. Police officers are charged with the crime. Heidi Chokos is here to tell me the story, but I'll also be speaking with our reporters on the ground. We've got Ronald Masinda in Cape Town at just outside the Maitland police station, and also in Cape Town, Monique Mortlock will also join us a little bit later. But if I may start with yourself, Heidi. The Julies family, it's what, 2 years now. This must be traumatic for them.
Very traumatic, and part of the reason why this is even more traumatic for the Julies family is because the judge that was nearing the end of this specific matter unfortunately passed away, and now this trial needs to start from the very beginning with a new judge. So it becomes very difficult for the family to basically relive every single moment and every single fact as to what actually happened to Nathaniel Julies 2 years ago. We got a chance to speak to the mother today, who really is very emotional about everything, because even when she was sitting through the matter throughout last year and the year before, she literally sits in the gallery and sobs because she just hears about the graphic details as to what exactly happened to her son, and how currently you have these 3 police officers who are out on bail. Yes, they were granted bail, but a mother who has tragically lost her son in such a gruesome way feels as though this is justice not being served, because she has to sit and wait until the judge actually makes a decision. We got a chance to speak to her earlier on, and of course one can understand how emotional she was. Let's listen to what she told us.
I was really devastated. I couldn't understand it. That's why I break down. To hear how many, how many pellets the little body of Nathaniel took that night, and nobody was there with him to cover him and hold him as a mother. It breaks my heart. I was just a few miles away from the house. They could have just come to me and say, whose child is this? Ask around, whose child is this? Instead of shooting him to pass on, Yeah. That night was a nightmare that no parent can live through here.
I mean, it's just sad hearing that. And you also got a chance to speak with the sister.
Yes, so it's the older sister, Petunia, who was with her mother today, actually where Nathaniel Julies was shot in El Dorado Park. One must remember that he was at an abandoned truck container, supposedly eating biscuits, and suddenly the police pulled up and shot him. Of course, the family not understanding why that happened. But it's so gruesome, Tony, because you hear the sister explaining how they were all in the house when this actually happened, and they explain how it sounded like an explosion when the gunshot went off, because it's literally a few meters away from the house, and they all ran out and they were trying to understand what was going on, and they saw the police van driving off and they couldn't understand what was going on. When they went closer to this abandoned container, they saw Nathaniel Julies bleeding and under the container, and they just could not understand what was going on. The sister, of course, the question posed to her was, why she has not been in court, and whether or not she's going to sit through this trial that's commencing, because unfortunately, as I mentioned, the judge passing away, and she says she just hopes for justice to be served. She wants closure for herself and her family. There are 7 children, and now 6, because Nathaniel Julies, of course, passing away. And she just says she just hopes that the courts will understand the urgency and importance for this family to have some closure and not to have to relive every single moment again. Let's listen to the sister.
Nathaniel was important to me. He was my brother. Any situation that he was in, Down syndrome, didn't harm anyone. He was a loving person. He could play with everyone here in the street. He could greet people more than 10 times when they just pass him. Playing with him in the yard, laughing. He liked water a lot. It's just too much for us.
I mean, it's It is saddening, isn't it? It really is. Let me just go across now to Cape Town. Monique Mortlock is with us. Monique, we had a chance to speak yesterday, and we're talking about the backlog in DNA. And you had a chance to speak with some authorities in Cape Town. We're still focusing on that and also looking at how it's affecting the fight against gender-based violence. Okay, Monique, I don't know whether you can hear me, but okay, she's struggling to hear me. Let me go to Ronald Masinda while we sort that particular communication problem out. Ronald, you are basically looking at, we're still on the subject of, the judiciary. We've been focusing a lot on crime stats and so forth, but let's look at Cape Town and Mitchell's Plain. You're at just outside the Maitland police station. We know there's a lot of crime that takes place there. What are the communities saying? Are they, do they cooperate a lot with the police? Are they happy with the service that they're getting from the SAPS?
Yes, many people are up in arms, Tony. The people that we spoke to in Mitchell's Plain earlier, they were telling us that they've been spending about 3 to 4 years in court and yet no convictions or no outcomes have come out from their cases. And what we can also tell you, Tony, is that some of the biggest issues on the ground is that when they go to court, there's issues of a lack of evidence, and this seems to be leading to the postponement of the cases. I know for the fact that when we've been going through a lot of areas when Minister Bekele, when he has arrived, especially for his imbizos, he also has said that communities have a big role to play in order to be the eyes and ears on the ground to implicate those involved in the deadly shootings. Last weekend alone, around 12 people were shot in a space of 24 hours. That just gives you an idea of what takes place in some of the communities on the Cape Flats. But the biggest issue for people is for them being whistleblowers, it also places their own lives in danger. One of them is Roxana Pascoe. She has her own story to tell. Roxana, you've been in hiding now since 2016. Briefly tell us a bit about your story.
So just like it happens lately on our streets of the Cape Flats, I was at home while this gang, rivalry gang, fought it with their gang, the same gang, in fact, that's currently fighting in Manenberg at this current moment. And then they assaulted this young man, Angelo Davids, and he was murdered. The result of it, a night before I had to testify, my whole house was shot through. My children had to be dead by the rate of the shooting. I think, was it not for the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime, I would have been dead that night, but they assisted me in putting a safety plan in place because our laws say nothing can happen until the actual act has not taken place. Even though I have complained to say I'm getting threats of intimidation and I'm asked to refrain from testifying. Nothing could happen until the gang has retaliated in executing their threat.
Shana, what's even more shocking is that the alleged perpetrator, in fact, he was convicted for life imprisonment and he only received 3 years. Why?
So the perpetrators, the one got 20 years and the other one got life. What happened then, he only did 3 years. Last year, December, both of them were released. And this is what they say, his defense say a technical problem is that although the video footage, although all those evidence, the state cannot just lay their case primarily on me as a state witness. My concern, again, there's so much into this case that speaks to what the state need to look at. There was another witness that was bribed by the gang leader, and she then said she have to withdraw because she has taken the bribe. And that in itself had to say to the court that this man is guilty, because otherwise she wouldn't have brought the witness out. The other thing is, a night before I had to testify, the hit was done at my home. And so clearly, if they would have found me there, I would have been dead the next day. So where is the safety and security of us that take a stance to say enough is enough? We're not going to stand for this anymore. there's not real safety for us.
Safe to say there's also not safety for us, given that you're in hiding and we are here. So in terms of your own life, you've had to move house to house. Describe for us that experience and how is it impacting your family?
For one, it is the worst experience ever because after you testify, the state have nothing to do with you anymore. They do not have money to sustain you. If you have to apply to be taken out under the state. And at that time, my mother was going through cancer, so that was not viable for me. And just to rip children out of their whole being, just like that, it's traumatic. So what I did with the global initiatives help, we had to move around, and then I got a home where my children could be reintegrated into school. It cost a whole year for them to be integrated. Schools didn't want to take them because of me being a witness, and the state did not help. They had no obligation to help me because I have done the job of testifying. So now, currently what we are experiencing, my children can't get work. The surname is immediately, reference is crossed, and then so basically they're unemployed. They're only resting on me, and at this current moment, you know, it's where my phone are being hacked. A lot of things are happening. We just can't go to a hospital or take a public taxi because of the risk that goes with it.
Shanda, thank you so much for your time. So much to unpack, but we've run out of time. That was Shanda Pascal giving us her own experience as a whistleblower at Tony.
All right, thank you so much, Ronald Masinda. They're reporting for us in Cape Town. Let's stay in Cape Town, and our reporter Monique Mortlock is also waiting for us to speak with her. Monique, you're focusing a little bit on the backlog in DNA, and of course, a lot of cases being postponed, a lot of cases also just not making it to the court because of this massive backlog in DNA, and that's affecting, people's confidence in the judiciary and the justice system, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. This morning we heard from civil rights organisation Action Society's Ian Cameron that the backlog that the SAPS here in the Western Cape was dealing with before, of hundreds of thousands of DNA samples that needed to be processed, right now it's standing at about 58,000 DNA samples from that first batch. Mind you, there have been so many other cases since then, so one can only gather how many DNA samples still need to be processed at the Forensic Science Laboratory here in Plattekloof in Cape Town. And the DNA sampling process plays such a crucial role in the success of cases getting anywhere, of a case moving. We've heard from victims this morning who wish to remain anonymous that cases, their own cases of GBV have been time and again thrown out of court or temporarily suspended due to a lack of DNA evidence or due to a lack of evidence altogether. And one case in particular that played quite big in the media, or the family and friends might say not big enough, not enough spotlight was shown on it, was that of 18-year-old UWC theology student Jessie Hess, who was murdered alongside her grandfather Chris Lategan on the 30th of August 2019. And that the murder of Hess and her grandfather was largely overshadowed, many would say, by the murder of Uyinene Mkhwetyana, who was a UCT student who had also been killed just days earlier. I'm speaking now to a friend of Jessie Hess, Zalia Vivian. Thank you so much for joining us, Vivian. Zalia, let's start with what I just mentioned, how family and friends felt during that time of in the wake of Jessie's murder, how you felt it was handled by police, by the justice system, and by the media.
It's no secret that countless times the justice system has failed victims of gender-based violence. One of them happened to be my friend Jessie Hess. So there was a lot of frustration surrounding how we were feeling because we wanted justice for our friend. We wanted to see that, she's able to receive the justice that she deserves, and most importantly, we wanted to become a voice for her because she was silenced in such an horrendous way. And seeing that the media and the police wasn't giving us much of a voice, we decided to take it into our own hands and take to the streets and social media to get her case out there.
How important do you think it is for the media to also highlight cases like Jesse's, and how important is this in the process of getting justice for not only Jessie and her grandfather, but also for the family and for you as the friends who loved her? Explain to me what you have seen, how important of a role that plays.
I've noticed that not only the media but also social media allowing for people to know more about Jesse's case creates, anger amongst the people, and the anger is what drives them to, requesting more from the justice system. It allows for people to have their voices heard, and the more voices we have gunning at, an outcome, the better we might actually, have a chance at getting that outcome. So for us as friends and as family of Jessie Hess to be able to see that, there's media taking notes of the case shows that there's actually people listening, and that gives us more hope that eventually it will be resolved, because now more people know about it, and it also allows for other victims to come forward and see that there is hope, they will be heard, and there is a way for them to receive justice for their own cases.
And just quickly tell me, how do you feel about the fact that her, the convicted killer, he was convicted last week or a few weeks ago, he's being sentenced in 2 weeks' time?
It's a relief that we've been waiting for a very long time for. We've been waiting for more than 2 years now, and those 2 years can be harrowing, especially when you know that this is the killer and this is what happened. You frustrated at the fact that they're not, going at it quicker and getting him behind bars where he belongs. So it is a sigh of relief, and it does somewhat bring closure to how all of us are feeling.
Thank you so much. That was Zalia Vivian, who in Jesse's honor actually started a foundation in which she's trying to help GBV victims of sexual assault, just to link them to networks that might help, like Rape Crisis and Tears. And as she mentioned, that need for communities to also call for an accused not to get bail. This is something that we heard yesterday from Western Cape Community Policing Forum's Francina Lucas, where she said communities actually play quite a crucial role in the type of attention and priority that cases do get in courts.
All right, thank you so much reporting for us there, Monique, and also in the Western Cape, Ronald Masid. I would like to thank you guys, and also Heidi Chokos in studio. If I might just close it off with you, Heidi, in talking about the Julie's case. You're saying back in court next week, and also just a quick one, what do we know about the accused police officers, former police officers?
Yes, so what we do know is that the matter's back in court next week, Friday, the 3rd of June, and we do know that it's going to be set down for pre-trial, because a new judge has now, of course, been appointed, given the fact that the previous judge unfortunately passed away. What we also know is that the 3 police officers, of course, have been suspended. They are currently out on bail, and that is important for the family, because they do not want the family to be, they do not want the police officers, of course, to still be operating as police officers, given what they know has happened to their son.
Okay. Heidi Chokos, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll carry on with our focus during the day.
Sure.